What's up, YouTube? I'm working on a 2005 Nissan Frontier, and the throw-up bearing is actually bad. And one of the problems that it's giving is the car won't go in gear. You hit the clutch, but it won't allow the car to go in gear, and it's making a loud squeaking noise. So I'm actually going to replace this. Before I do that though, as usual, safety first. So I got my jack stand. I also got my ramp under the wheel just in case jack stand failed. You never know. And go across the front. See here, I got my jack holding up the front also. Another ramp. And on the other side, I have my other jack stand. And in the back, I got two heavy-duty jack stands also holding up the rear. So I got plenty clearance to drop the transmission and get to that throw-out bearing. And to get this out, I got to remove the drive shaft. So you see, go all the way back. Got to remove those bolts, 4 bolts. And I got to remove the bolt right here. Well, the nut rather, on both sides. And this comes off for the carrier bearing. Take that off, and I'll be able to slide the drive shaft towards the back. It separates from the tranny, and get that out. And on the inside, I had to remove the shift knob, and it's just threads, so it's screwed in. Just unscrew that, pop the center console off, it's clips, and I gotta take off this plate. So these bolts, 1, 2, 3 right here, and 4. To get this one off, you gotta take this bolt out right in here so that this plate moves out of the way, and I'm able to get that bolt out. And I've also went ahead and disconnected the battery. I'm going to drain the transmission fluid. That's the drain plug. But before I take this out and drain it, right above it, I'm just going to make sure I could get this loose, and this is the fill plug. Always try to get this loose, just to make sure that once you drain it, you could actually refill it. There we go, that cracked loose. And I have my catch pan ready. And I've seen where some people say you don't have to drain it, but I'm going to change the fluid anyway. The fluid hasn't been changed in a while, so I'm just going to end up changing that. And I don't have a manual on this, so I'm just pretty much gonna drain it. Fluid is actually clean. You can see all kinds of shavings on this. I know the owner had the clutch change maybe about 2 years ago, he said. I'm pretty sure they changed the fluid then, but I'll just go ahead and change it again anyway. And a good practice is to get a clean container. This one was clean. I already cleaned it out, made sure there was nothing in it. But the good practice is getting a clean container, dump your fluid in it. That way you could measure it, like pour it in a gallon jug, and get an idea for how much fluid came out. So when you're putting it back in, you know that you're putting in the same amount of fluid. I have to remove the starter, and to remove the starter, it's 2 bolts. 1 bolt right here, 1 right here. So 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top, and then I'll just remove the starter out of the way. And to get to the starter, I had to remove the passenger side wheel and the splash shield. And there we have the opening to get to the starter. Now that I got the starter removed, and I just tucked it off to the side right here, put the bolts back in it. I removed this wire harness. It was just a clip that snapped in. I just popped it out. And then I got to remove this bolt with this plate on it. And there's a breather line right here that's connected to the plate. I'm just gonna take the bolt out. This bolt actually goes into the engine, so it helps to hold the tranny. So just gotta remove that. From here I'm gonna remove these bolts, and these are 17 mil. And once you try to remove these, the drive shaft most likely is gonna be try to turn. You could either have someone step on the brakes while you crack them loose, or being that this is a stick shift, I just put it in first gear, and it'll prevent it from turning. Actually, I'll leave that one in. And that's what these looks like. A bolt and a nut in the back. I'm just gonna put a little scribe on it just to remember how I took it off. From here I gotta remove the drive shaft carrier bearing. And it's a nut right here, and there's one on the other side. That's 14 millimeter. Same thing on the opposite side, and it's a little tighter on this side because we have the gas tank right here. Crack it loose. Bearings loose. So I went ahead and removed that bolt all the way in the back. So now I'm going to drop the back half, and then I'll pull the whole drive shaft out of the transmission. From here, disconnect all the connectors that's on the transmission. On the passenger side, I gotta remove these connectors. And to disconnect these connectors, you just wanna get in there with a little flathead screwdriver right here. And you just wanna pry it out a little bit, and it unplugs. This one up here, all you have to do is press on this little tab, and you just push that in and unplug it. Once all the connectors and wire harness is disconnected, then you just gotta finish taking the bolts out. You see I have 2 bolts up there. I already took those 2 out. Well, 3 actually. You can see all 3 holes. And then I just gotta go around. And on the other side, same thing on this side. I gotta take those out. Got another one all the way back there. Now for the top ones, you're gonna need a extension. to add to your socket to get it to where you could get clearance to operate your socket. And once I get those loose, I'll leave maybe 2 bolts in it just to hold it. And I gotta take this cross member off. So for this cross member, it's 1, 2, come across, 3, 4, and I'm gonna loose this transmission mount. So I'll take the nuts off right here at the bottom, and that way once I undo the bar, the cross member, and these 2 right here, and same on the other side right here, this whole cross member will fall down. But before I take it off, I'll get my transmission jack and I'll place it under the transmission. I'm going to place it more towards the drain plug. Let it sit like that. Even though the front section seems bigger and bulkier, there's really nothing in there. So all the gears are in this section, so it's going to be heavier. I'll just put my transmission jack more towards the rear, and once I have it, got some pressure on it, then I could take the cross member off. So at this point I got all the bolts out. Everything's been removed. I got the bolts out for the cross member. Got these 2 out. Those 2. Now it's just I gotta spray it down with some rust penetrant and use a hammer and a crowbar to try and pry it off. Now what I pretty much did, I got my hammer and I hit the top of it to push it down, and as you can see, it's starting to come out. Well, it's almost out. This side is out already actually. So I just use my hammer, I hit this side and I hit that side, and pretty much something like so. And I'll just clean all that rust up before I put it back in. Here you can see I got it separated. So now it's just to drop it on the jack. So I've discovered that I was not able to remove the transmission without removing the shifter. And you can see here I took the shifter off. I have it sitting right here. And it's pretty easy to come off. It's 6 bolts. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And once you take the bolts off, this little lip right here, I just put a flathead screwdriver on it and use a rubber mallet and just tap on it to break this loose. Got that off, and I'm just gonna get a rag and stuff in here so no debris falls in there. So by doing that, now I have clearance to slide the transmission towards the rear so I could lower it. Before, the shifter was actually hitting this plate right here, and because of that, the transmission wasn't able to go backwards. So removing it is pretty easy. Just grab it, pull forward, and it's just gonna come off the spring, and that's it right here. This is the spring that holds the fork. And the back of the fork, there's another spring. Sit right here. It sits like so. And there's a little indent. And there's a ball under here that it slides in and it snaps in. And on this end, it just goes right behind the springs like that, and that's how you get your throw out action. So putting it back in is pretty much just to put the bottom in first, slide this on, and once you get the new one in like so, the spring that's down here, you're gonna push on it and it snaps right in to that ball, and when you hit the clutch, you get your action. This is what that ball, the pivot bolt, looks like. It's actually a bolt with a ball on the end, and the ball sits right in here. The spring is what actually holds it. That's the shape of it. I'm actually gonna order this also, and this one is just to get a, just put a socket on it and take it off, and it's a 17 mil. So actually, to remove this transmission from this truck, you really only need 17, I believe 14 and 12. And the bolts that actually secure the transmission to the engine, the upper ones are 17s, and you can see the holes are bigger, and then the lower ones are 14. And on closer inspection, I see there's a piece of the pressure plate that's broken, the spring. That was actually just sitting in there. It could have been from the initial problem, or it could also be from maybe when the clutch was changed. It's just been sitting there, it broke and it's sitting there. And if you look, you could see where it came from on the right hand side. And that's it for removing and replacing the throwout bearing. From here on, it's just to get the new one, assemble it, put it in. And I see there's some that sell that you could press this out and press the new bearing in. I'm just gonna get a whole unit, so make it easier, just pop it in. But once you put it back in, you line the transmission up. It's good to have a second person to help you line it up so you could get it in properly, and you should be fine after that. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.